This is Twit.
Going back to the Stadia topic, we got an email from Mike who responded after watching last week's episode 447. He said, you guys are asking legitimate questions regarding concerns of the platform, except for one big question, in my opinion. How long is Google expected to actually support this venture? I think the idea of streaming games is great, but Google has an amazing reputation of abandoning projects they start. With Xbox releasing xCloud shortly and PlayStation releasing streaming services at some point, why would anyone invest in Stadia knowing that the quote-unquote big players will most likely be successful and cause Google to abruptly stop supporting Stadia? If it's successful, great, but the reliability of Google may drive people away from buying it. I certainly have my doubts and will advise people to avoid purchasing it because of this very reason. And Mike, that's a great question. We often talk about the Google graveyard, and actually we got an email later on in the show where that's going to come up again, and Google's questionable approach to things like Google Plus or the various things that are big initiatives at one point, and then about 3 years later they quietly are forgotten about. But I just feel like Google Stadia is different because A, is a little bit of hardware involved, and B, a lot of relationships with game developers, and looking at upcoming games that are coming out, seeing the Stadia logo on artwork and boxes already, like it's a little different than Google rolling out a service and seeing how people use it and then putting it in the graveyard and taking the parts and putting it in other apps. This is a true service. So like we often call out all the things that they shutter, but things like Google Photos are living on and are vibrant, right? And aren't being abandoned. I don't know, Huyen, what do you think the odds are that Google Stadia is around in a couple of years?
I give it like 50-50. I think it kind of depends. I mean, as a gamer, again, I'm like super excited about it, and I want it to work, and I'm willing. I think me personally, and I don't know, your mileage might vary on this, I'm willing to wait like maybe a year to 18 months to see kind of how it shakes up, because it is very promising, right? And it's like Flo, you were saying, in terms of just like the cost savings and kind of more accessibility of kind of like AAA titles to kind of folks that may not be able to afford a PS4 or the newest Xbox or whatever, or PS5 whenever it comes out. I will say optimistic, just because I think that kind of making high tier games accessible to everybody, and kind of the flexibility in kind of platform, like playing on your phone versus playing on like a controller, is super interesting. I'll give it like a year and a half. Like what? Maybe call it 2 years. I think by then maybe we'll know, just from from history.
Right.
Yeah.
Flo,
we have
based on
GDC Sorry, I was going to say we have GDC in 3 months, so I'm going to be very curious to see like what kind of maelstrom, or 4 months, whatever. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what kind of maelstrom comes out there.
Why Maelstrom though? But why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be like overwhelming support and rolling? Like it could trend upwards. You never know.
Well, I mean, marketing Maelstrom.
I'm
very curious to see, because Google has become. They have a booth now at GDC, which is not. To give them credit, like they're one of the first, not the first, but they're one of the few kind of mobile internet companies to be on the GDC show floor, along with all of these console and like typical, game companies like Capcom, Microsoft, whatever. So I'm very curious to see, kind of as they have more time to work on it in the next couple of months, we'll see. I mean, as long as they keep the development wheels rolling, as long as they keep people going to the game studios and saying, listen, please, let's do this. Let's put your game on Stadia. Let's get people into this. We're steadily growing, maybe it's only 0.5%, but that could snowball. You never know. I mean,
I will say I was pretty impressed by like the launch titles that they did come out with, because sometimes I think when you kind of see a new like gaming innovation in terms of a platform or something, usually people tend so just wide sweeping generalization, like often a problem is kind of the repertoire of games or titles that you have available. And I think I was looking really quickly earlier, it's like Tomb Raider and like Assassin's Creed, like Red Dead Redemption 2, like this is not a slouchy list of games. So I kind of give them a lot of credit for that as well, so that they've actually done the work of partnering with developers and kind of getting like really interesting titles. So I mean that does say something, that maybe they're investing time and building relationships in this product.
Maybe just don't market all the 4K stuff. Maybe just say it's streaming games, so you don't have to like. You just don't have to worry about all the other stuff. Like, just leave it at that. It doesn't need to be like 4K, woo.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. If any you talk, I mean, to Mike's point, with admittedly Xbox and Sony, PlayStation rolling out their own streaming services. Yes, Microsoft has a lot of computing power behind it. Sony doesn't have the bona fides that maybe Microsoft and Google have in terms of computing power, but they've got the money to back it up, and we'll be able to probably figure that out.
The libraries, they have all that IP.
Yeah, but in terms of the concept of streaming and processing power and bandwidth and fiber and all this stuff, like it's hard to bet against Google in the delivery capability, the delivery aspect. That's why going back to the story about the 4K performance, I actually don't blame them for pushing back on the developers, because if whichever game developer delivered a version that does not delivering 4K, that's on the developer. That's not on Google. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think GDC will be very, very telling. I think the holiday season will be telling with sales. And then we'll just see if people are ready for this, or if, like we talked about last week, if it's more like a Chromecast version of gaming platforms, and it's kind of too hard for people to figure out. But yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. Thanks, Mike, for the email. Appreciate it.